Welcome to the PleinAir Podcast from PleinAir Magazine. I'm your host, Eric Rhoads, publisher and founder of PleinAir Magazine, and this is episode number 6, which features artist Albert Handell. In the PleinAir Podcast, we dive into the world of outdoor painting called plein air painting. For those of you who don't know, plein air is a French term that essentially means out in the open air or outdoors. The French pronounce it plein air. Others pronounce it plein air, but no matter what you call it, there's a huge movement of artists around the world who are going outdoors to paint. And this show is all about that movement, the painters, the collectors, the galleries, and the art. This week's podcast is brought to you by the PleinAir Salon Art Competition with $21,000 in cash prizes, including $15,000 to the grand prize winner. Competition ends for the year, March 15th, and it's your very last chance to enter before we give away the grand prize at the Plein Air Convention. Enter your 5 best paintings for the year at PleinAirSalon.com. It is, of course, my personal goal to see more and more people fall in love with outdoor painting, and you can help by sharing this podcast with your friends on social media or email. And I hope, of course, you'll subscribe so it comes to you every week. And if you have feedback or interview requests, please contact me, Eric, at PleinAirMagazine.com. This podcast is also brought to you by the Plein Air Convention, the world's largest gathering of plein air artists, and it's coming up April 15th through 19th in Tucson. It's the world's largest gathering of artists and a great place to watch a faculty of over 70 top artists do painting demonstrations and to work with you on your painting outdoors. It's got indoor instruction in the nice air conditioning and outdoor painting in the beautiful Tucson area. Activities from morning to night, and it's a lot of fun. You can learn more at PleinAirConvention.com. Today's interview is brought to you by EaselBrushClip.com. Today our interview is with one of America's great plein air painters who is known for his incredible pastel work, Albert Handell. Let's get right to it. Well, we have Albert Handell on the line. Albert, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
And you're in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Are you there full time?
Yes, I'm here full time, except for when I travel on painting trips or workshops. Yeah. I just love it here in Santa Fe. It's just beautiful here. The light is very special. I'm not too sure why, but it is. The colors are gorgeous. There's a feeling of I don't know how to put it to you. It's like I'm not in the United States in 2016. It's like I'm somewhere else. At times it feels very European. At other times the glow from the light, the skies. I was undecided when I left Woodstock, New York. Do I want the California coast, which is gorgeous, or do I want northern New Mexico, Taos, or Santa Fe? So there's always a question, well, you got the ocean or you have the sky. Well, for the ocean, you got to be standing at the ocean to enjoy the ocean. For the skies, all you have to do is just look up at any time. But it wasn't just that. It was just, there's very low traffic here compared to the coast. And it just feels wonderful. I've never been happier. I've lived in a lot of places.
How long have you been in Santa Fe?
Around 32 years. Good years.
The way you're talking about it is this, as if you just got there or something, because you're still in love with it. 32 years is a long time.
Well, yeah. I guess that sounds a little strange, but I take the visual roots home at all times. I just love walking around here. I love photographing it, painting it, smelling it. In the summers, here in Santa Fe, they have music at the plaza Monday through Saturday, and I'm an old swing dancer, so... And even when there's some dance there that I don't like to dance to, everybody's out there. It's a unique thing. The food is delicious and different, and not all that hoity-toity, but just good. And I love my home and my studio.
So you don't work out of your home. Your studio is in a different location. You said you take the scenic route. I assume that means you're driving to a studio somewhere?
No, I walk to my studio. It's right next door. When I go to the post office, when I go to the gym, I like to work out regularly. There are some streets here that have something aged about them, and I like to take those streets as I travel around.
So one thing I'm curious about with Santa Fe, because I've been there many times and I love Santa Fe. I've never lived there. Does it have the feel of a small town in the sense that, you know, does everybody who are locals kind of know everybody, or is it too big for that?
It's a little bigger than that, but it does have a feel of a small town.
And what about the arts? What about the arts community? Is the arts community all pretty tight with one another?
Yeah, we have our gallery openings on Fridays. We have a part of our New Mexican newspaper that's called Pasatiempo, which I imagine means passing time. I'm not sure about that. But inside that, it has the openings of the galleries, book signings, or just 2 weeks ago, my wife and I, we went to the Lensic and saw high definition The Pearl Fishers, one of my favorite operas. There's just so much to do here for a relatively small town, okay? Everybody does not know everybody, but you can bump into a friend easy enough. And it's a little bit bigger than that, but boy, it's jam-packed with all sorts of wonderful culture.
Well, you were talking about the color of light and the atmosphere in the air. Are you doing a lot of plein air painting? Do you go out and do a lot of sketches and then bring them into the studio?
Well, I work a little differently than that, Eric. During the warm months, I like to leave the studio and paint on location for most of the time, and I work with pastel or with watercolor underpainting, finishing with pastel. And I kind of forget the oils altogether, except for if and when I give a demonstration in a workshop. The third day of the workshop is usually an oil demo. But my mind is off working in the studio larger with oils, and my mind is just one plein air painting after the other with pastel. I just love the medium, and I love being outdoors.
So
I no longer can tolerate winter, so I should put that in.
Yeah. So when the weather's warm, how often are you out? Are you out every day?
Very often. Not every day, but very often.
Yeah. So let's back up. Let's go back before Santa Fe. You mentioned Woodstock, New York. Were you living full-time in Woodstock, or were you commuting into the city from there? No,
I lived full-time in Woodstock, New York. Hold on for a second. I live full-time in Woodstock, New York, and I love painting woods interiors. That's where I got involved with mountain streams. I love trees, winter trees where you see the skeleton, winter trees where you see the snow on the top plains, winter trees as it's turning into spring and the sap is growing, winter trees in gray days, winter trees in sunlight. I like trees. And
obviously you like winter trees, right?
I at one time preferred the winter to the summer until I really got involved with the summer greens. I find that the mauves, the purples, really balance out the greens beautifully, and the greens don't turn into mud when I modify them.
So I'm not a pastel painter, Albert, and I've never even really tried it, so shame on me. But When I'm trying to cut greens by adding reds into them to gray them down a little bit, to make them a little bit richer and so on, so they're not quite so garish, is the same process done with pastel, or do you're really selecting the color of the stick that's already the color that you want to lay down? Is that right, or do you try to combine them?
Well, combining them differently. First of all, any pastel stick that you have, if you vary the pressure, you vary the color. If you press down hard, you got the full color. If you press down lighter, you have a different color. Take white for a moment on a gray piece of paper. You press hard and you got white. If you press white very softly, you don't have white. And that's true with every single color, but that's the best example of varying the pressure.
So does does varying the pressure change the value?
Yes, of course.
Really?
Because if you take white on a gray sheet of paper and press hard, you got white. You take white on the same gray piece of paper and you press very lightly, and you have some kind of a gray. Because
the paper is bleeding through.
Yes.
I see.
Yes. And when I'm working, we're talking about green now. I go for the strongest green I have. I just hope that the value is correct. Once the value is correct and the green is either warm or cool, I can change it by changing warm into cool and cool into warm. But let's say it's too strong. Well, I take a mauve, a purple, a cool purple that has a lot of blue in it, and I lightly go over it. Now, here's another thing about color mixing. You guys have to take the palette knife out and mix it up. I guess at the color, put it down strong. The value, let's say, is right. So let's say it's too strong. So I'll take a complement of green, not red, but a cool purple. The reason why it's a cool purple is because blue is in both colors. Blue is in green, and blue is in purple, a cool purple. Then I would gently drift over what I have, and I have a phenomena. I have the rich green, yet it's harmonized in such a subtle way that it adds a unique beauty to the application.
So for those of us who are on the dark side, so to speak, oil painters or watercolorists perhaps, what would your big pitch be for why we need to try pastel painting, and what is it about it that made you fall in love with it?
Well, I love to draw, and I love to paint, and pastel is the best medium I know of where drawing and painting is simultaneously involved together.
So let's go back, way back. How did this painting thing all begin for you? How did you become an artist?
Well, as a kid growing up in Brooklyn, I looked at the Saturday Evening Post and all that, and I saw Norman Rockwell. And when I went to the movie theaters, they had these marquees, somebody jumping off a hill onto somebody who's riding a horse or something. And all that stuff just fascinated me. Then I saw a Walt Disney thing where I saw a brush go across a white screen and the paint drifted down and there was a picture and all that. I guess I just was visually sensitive, and I used to draw on the streets of Brooklyn with some chalk, and people patted me on the head, which I needed. And I just could spend hours just drawing. So that's where it began. And then I wanted to be an illustrator. I went to the High School of Industrial Arts, and they were preparing me for Madison Avenue to do layouts. That's not what I wanted, and one of the teachers said, try the Art Students League, and that did it.
So who did you study with at the Art Students League?
I studied on Saturdays with a fellow named Louis Priscilla. He died young, but he studied with George Bridgman. So I had a second-hand teaching of George Bridgman. One summer I studied drawing with a sculptor, Robert Ward Johnson, again, not terribly well known. And then there wasn't too many choices back then for realistic teachers. You know, it was back in, the 50s in New York City. If you painted realistically, they thought something was wrong with you because, you know, as they thought, it was already done. Why bother? And I studied with Frank Mason for 2 years.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. And who were some of your fellow students that we might know?
Dave LaFell, Elias Rivera, myself. That's about it. The big boys were in a gallery called the Davis Gallery, and that's Bert Silverman and Harvey Dinnerstein and Dave Levine and all that.
Well, they're contemporaries of yours, right? You're all about the same
no,
age?
they're around 8-10 years older.
Oh, they are? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But it was so nice to find other people doing realism back then.
So it's
not like today.
Well, it was an age of modernism and abstract painting, I understand, and from what others have told me, it was very difficult to survive as an artist in that era because it was very uncool to do anything that was realistic. I'm surprised the Art Students League even survived it, quite frankly.
Well, they did.
Yeah, thank goodness. They've pumped out a lot of really great people over the years. So what was the point at which you got out of school, you got out of the Art Students League? What happened then? You were in New York. How did you make a living?
I was in New York for a couple of years, and then I decided that I got tired of all this abstract expressionism, and I decided to go back from whence realism came from. So I went to France. I moved to Paris, and I lived there for 4 years.
Really?
Yeah.
And were you making your living as a street artist, or were you going to school again? What did you do in Paris?
Eric, I really don't know how I survived, but I did.
Wow.
I really don't know how I did it.
So what age would you have been at that time?
24 to 28.
Yeah, that's how you survived.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some
idealism, hard work, and whatever it took, and that was the end of it.
So you came back from Paris, and where did you land?
I landed in Brooklyn, Brooklyn Heights. There was a possibility of buying a house in Park Slope. It fell through. I've always felt a bit poor in New York City, so I went to Mexico. And when I was in San Miguel de Allende, through serendipity, I ended up at the University of Utah for a short while. What it was, a group of students who were being brought down there by the ex-head, who was a realistic painter. His name was Alvin Gittins, and we became friends. And they had a need for a fill-in for 11 weeks in one of their art departments. And I was living, not exactly hand to mouth, but like 3 months to mouth, you know what I mean?
Right.
But in any event, I went up there, and I liked it. I liked Salt Lake City. It certainly wasn't like New York City. It was very friendly and casual and easygoing and not so hoity-toity.
Yeah, but you're a hellraiser, and you must have set that town on fire.
Well, they knew I was there. I had one-man shows. I was in a museum already, and or more, and yeah, I got along with. I had a studio immediately. A lot of the faculty didn't have a studio. I don't understand that. And the youngsters who took art as a major, we got along just great.
And how long were you in the Salt Lake City area?
good 2 years.
All right.
It was fun.
Okay.
Did a lot of nice work.
So
I decided to go back east when I was at an opening, and some friends of mine were talking to each other about cows, and I figured it was time to go home. And home meant not exactly in New York City, but I was at Bucks County on the Delaware River.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, me and Nelson Shanks were good friends. And I did a little work in the studio. He wanted to paint one of my wives. So.
Well, that was a shame. That was a real loss to lose Nelson.
Oh, yeah.
You all of this time you're teaching and you're painting. Are you able to make a living as an artist at that time?
Yeah, I had to move to Woodstock, New York, because my wife at that time had to work. And she tried many places, and the only place that was interested in giving her an interview was near Woodstock, New York, so that's how I ended up there. It's been interesting. I'm my best friend and my worst enemy. I have thrown away monies that I shouldn't have thrown away, and I don't mind owning up to that. I could have easily made a living completely as an artist if I wanted to live like my parents lived. They were immigrants, and they knew where every dollar went. I didn't want to follow suit, so I didn't know where every dollar went. But I'm here. I'm 78. I'm not beholden to anybody. And I make a living. And I paint what I want. I had lots of shows, museum shows.
Well, I would encourage people to look at your website, alberthandell.com, and the list of exhibitions and museum shows and all the different shows that went on is very impressive.
Thank you.
What do you think, Albert, looking back on your career, what do you think are the key things that you would like to share with other artists that might help them prevent mistakes perhaps that you've made or seek opportunities perhaps that you never really sought?
Well, that's an interesting question. I have to scratch my head. I learned how to draw, and a lot of these folks who are around and about have circumvented that. Yet they do nice paintings, and they're doing well. So I don't know if I would say, gee, I think you folks should really learn how to draw and measure things and stuff like that. I'm a little confused about that question, Eric.
Well, congratulations. I think we all are. I said congratulations. I think we're all confused about that question.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, it's just, it's very hard to identify exactly, you look back on one's life and identify 2 or 3 key things that you would do differently or advise others on. Sounds like you're very open-minded. When you started talking about drawing, I thought you would have definitely gone down that road and said, look, you have to get that core foundation, but you don't necessarily think so.
Well, I'm glad I did. Unconsciously, I make use of it all the time. I don't know what to say about that. The best way to learn how to measure is to do portrait work. And straight on or profile, not 2/3, because 2/3 takes in perspective and it takes in a different kind of measuring. I like the idea that I know a lot about measuring, and I make use of it in my works.
You do sight size though, right? You're not lining up the object exactly with your canvas and essentially transferring one measurement to the other.
No. That's academic training, which I respect, but I don't do. I'm more interested in rhythms, the rhythm of the tree, how it grows. I'm more concerned about the inner life of the twisting and turning of the tree. And I don't care if I have the branch coming out at the right place as compared to the branch on the left side. That's not my thing. Same with mountain streams. Writing an article right now about moving water and its rhythms. I'm more interested in strong color and controlling it. And we talked about that already. And textural quality has interested me a lot. I like when I work with my oils, and I like them to be larger. I like the underpainting to be transparent, very rich in color, not muted. And then it's so luminous that when I continue working on top of it, I try and keep as much of the initial luminosity as I can and still finish the work to my satisfaction. And I find that when I work with a palette knife on top of all this, that it has textual contrast that I really like, and that was something that was totally discouraged when I was studying at the Art Students League.
So isn't it unusual for pastel painters to put watercolor underneath the pastel? Is that something that is kind of your signature trademark, or is that something that is pretty common?
It's part of my signature trademark, and is it all mine and nobody else's? I wouldn't say that. Other people have used that. I have shown it in my teaching. There's a few ways to do that. One way is to apply pastel and dilute it with terpenoid or alcohol if you're outdoors. I introduced that to a number of folks, and now it's commonplace. Is my name still on that technique? I don't know, but I introduced it. And then I said to myself, with this textual contrast, what is the most transparent thing I can do? Well, it's watercolor. So I switched over to watercolor underpainting. And, painting on plein air, on location, with pastel, I actually introduced that through my workshops through the country, and it got picked up, and there's endless people doing it now. But the only other artist who was working with pastel on location that I know of was Wolf Kahn. And when he teaches oils, I hear. And I didn't pick up pastels to go outdoors because of an influence by him. I was just setting the record straight.
Well, it's more difficult, I would think, to paint outdoors in pastel than it is in any other medium, because you have to carry more stuff. You have to keep track of your sticks and so on. Am I wrong about that, or is it more challenging?
Well, portability could be a problem. Let me give you an example. Jump over to music for a moment. Oils is like the violin. You have 3-4 strings, whatever it is, and you can play everything. Pastel is more like the piano, where you need all 86 notes or whatever they have. And my question to you is, if you're going next door, would you rather take your violin or your piano? So obviously, pastel, with 3 or 4 or 5 colors as an oil painter, a lot of oil painters paint lovely pictures with that. Pastel is, if you have 3, 4, 5 colors, you're basically drawing at best. So the Heilman box helped. Well, let's see. You don't have to take the whole stick of pastel out. I take a third of the stick, and I take off the label. And I leave the label and the rest of the color in the box so I can index it. Index it means with all the colors I have that I take outdoors and I keep working, some of the sticks get very small, and those are the ones I use the most. So I definitely don't want to lose sight of them. So I take the small piece and I go back to the box that it came in, and I find the rest of the stick with the label on, and I call up Dakota Art Supply. They have everything, and I buy 2 or 3 sticks of that color. So I'm working out there, Eric, with around 500 colors, believe it or not, in a nice compact box that the Heilmans have made. It's very interesting. It has foam on the bottom, it has foam on the top, and when you close it, if you have one layer of pastel, they don't move, so they stay clean. And you got to make sure you only have one layer of pastel, because if you're in a rush and you have one pastel stick on top of the other, you'll be able to close the box, but you'll crush the color.
Yeah.
So I'm not limited in color at all. Like I say, 500 colors. How many do you need?
When you you do a lot of teaching.
Yes.
I looked at your website before this and saw that you had a lot of workshops, a lot of sold-out workshops. You're a very popular guy. What are the core essential principles that you want people to walk away with if you do a workshop? Obviously, that's, a workshop can be several days and you're dealing with a lot of things, but what are the biggest takeaways you want your students to take?
Well, first of all, I relate my teaching when the teaching happens in the afternoons to the individual. That's the first thing. And one size doesn't fit all. I demonstrate and I show them how I sense the composition, how I work with a dark, hard pastel, bottle green 298p, and how I work lightly until I have a sense of what's going on. Then I work stronger, and I work from dark to light, and once I have a sense of what's going on there, and I have some tones put in, and I like to wipe them down so they're, you see, there's a problem with most pastelists that they overload it, and it's like a heavy overcoat. I like to show them they can indicate what they want to at the beginning without overloading the pastel. Then I go to one area that is the most obvious. You can call it the center of interest. I call it the most obvious, where the values are strongest, the color is clearest, and I go to that area and I paint that area close to finish. And then I work from the center of interest out. Now, they're not taught that. They're taught that everything is like on a whirlwind there, where everything has to relate to every last thing and all that, and you can't go into any detail until everything is copacetic and all that. And it's exhausting.
Exhausting to the eye.
It's exhausting to the eye. It's exhausting to them. The thing that interests them after 2 hours of whatever they're doing there, they don't have any energy to even get back to the thing that interests them. I go for the throat immediately. I say.
So you paint in what you the one thing that resonates with you, your focal point. You paint that in first and foremost.
I'm right there. I'm right there. I mean, why should I be somewhere else?
Right, because that's what you've resonated with. That's what you've fallen in love with. That's the reason you're doing that picture, right?
Yes. So I get to it fast, and I work from the center of it, and I really spend time with it. There's the correct drawing, there's the correct value relationship, there's the correct colors, there's lost and found edges, especially in landscape painting. And once I feel I have what I have, then I reinforce the thinness of color that I've already established, and I really make a commitment. It's right, it's wrong, what is it? And let's say it's the sky that's touching the bare trunk of a tree in winter, you know? And let's say I put a strong blue down there because it's kind of blue. And it's the right value, but it's a little bit too blue. Well, I will take a mauve, a purple, the exact same value, and gently drift over it. Not replace it, drift over it. And I could alter that strong blue, which is of the right value but the wrong color, and modify the color and still keep the strength of that initial blue. It's interesting. I can't do that with oils.
Ah, interesting. So for the person who's listening to this who might not be as experienced, I think one point to make is one mistake painters tend to make is when they hear center of interest, they think center of canvas, and that's not at all what you're saying here, is it?
No, I'm saying the most obvious area.
Right.
That's what I said first, and I said you can call it the center of interest if you wish to, but it's the most obvious area. A lot of people don't go to the obvious area. They go to areas that it's not obvious at all to them. And they're working away, and I say, why are you over there? Oh, I don't know. I said, what do you mean you don't know? Look, you want to paint that, we'll keep it to a tree, okay? You want to paint that tree in winter. Paint it. What keeps you from painting it? It seems like the education, Eric, is something like you can't paint the tree unless it's within the entire environment of the page. I agree with that. The tree can't be pasted on, but the tree has to be observed and painted. And then as you drift out, you can relate what's touching the tree. Then there's a certain point when you have plenty of this on there. Then I say, what do I play down and what do I emphasize? And then you're going into, it's like a metamorphosis. You're going into another thing where you might as well not look up there and just look at your painting and see what your painting needs. And that metamorphosis creeps up on you. And if you're constantly looking out there, you might miss out on this.
Now, do you tend to keep your focal point or your center of interest sharp, high contrast, and most chroma, and then you kind of loosen things up as you get further and further away and gray them down as you get further away?
Well, certainly soften the edges as you go away. Instead of graying them down, I like to use complementary colors, which mutes in a beautiful way the areas that you're talking about graying down. They're grayed down without using gray. They're grayed down by using complementary colors of the exact same value.
Right.
So there's no edges. They just visually swim right in and out of each other. And that's something I have a good eye for, and I show that to people, and they're shocked, they're surprised.
This is probably the same question, really. You've probably already answered the question, but how do you define a good painting?
It has to hit me. When somebody comes into the studio, the biggest compliment is, you know?
And the worst compliment is, it looks like a photograph.
No, the worst compliment is just a lot of words. I don't listen to them. When I show a painting, I stand to the side of the painting, and I look down as if I'm, casually there. But I'm looking at their faces. If their faces light up, they're one of mine. They're one of my people. If they look at it and they start telling me stories without lighting up, I thank them and I forget them.
And you move on.
Yeah. Look, I can't please everybody, so to speak, if that's the right word, or I can't thrill everybody. I like that word. But those who I thrill, those are my people.
Yeah. So as you look back on your career, are there any really special moments of meeting somebody or having a certain discovery or something happening in your career that you'd like to share with us, something that would be really special?
All I can say is I've been inspired by two artists, Andrew Wyeth and Richard Schmidt. Both those folks are extremely different. One I never met, the other I'm good friends with. I'm good friends with Richard. And those two people, the works that they've done, have been an inspiration to me. I haven't studied with either or anything like that, but I would name those two folks.
And what about deceased artists, people from the past that you really enjoy?
Well, that's okay. Let me think about that. Charles Hassam is very exciting to me. Edgar Degas. Certainly John Singer Sargent and Sorolia. Where am I here? Yeah, those folks.
Right.
Zorn. Yeah, I really love those folks. Sargent. I'd say Sargent is one of my favorite artists. Yes.
Yeah, I think we all kind of feel that way. What would you ask Sargent if you had 10 minutes with him? Any particular question?
Yeah. Can I paint with you?
Yeah. Yeah. Can I watch? Right.
Can I watch? Can I paint alongside?
Well, this has been wonderful. I really appreciate your time today. Let me ask you the tough question. How do you want to be remembered?
How do I want to be remembered? Well, I don't think of that too much. He loved to paint and draw, and he liked life.
And he lived it very fully.
And he lived it very fully.
And he loves to swing dance.
He certainly does.
Well, we had a lot of fun out there dancing on the floor of the closing party of the PleinAir convention, didn't we?
We sure did.
I think you closed down the place, and I think you probably were dancing harder and stronger than anybody in the room.
Well, I've always loved the swing dance ever since the 50s.
Oh,
That's domino and you name them.
Well, I should tell everybody that you're going to be at the PleinAir convention this year, and I should tell you that we have a band, and we're going to have a closing party. So it's going to be fun. It's a Western theme, and we have this old Western village outside the hotel that we're going to have the party in. It's really a fun environment, so that's going to be great. The other thing is that I think you'll get a kick out of this. We've got the old Tucson movie set. We're going to all go out there and paint. And so, there'll be cowboys and dance hall girls and Native Americans and horses and things like that around there. But all the old buildings and things that have been used in, every imaginable Western that you can think of, from Gunsmoke or Little House on the Prairie or, you name it, they've all been there. So that's going to be fun. Well,
Eric, you do a lovely job, I have to tell you. I love your magazines, and this is God's honest truth, the fine art connoisseur, and PleinAir magazine are fabulous magazines. You're doing a great job.
That's very kind of you to say. Well, thank you for your time today, and hope we'll get a chance to go painting together.
That'd be nice. I'd like to get to know you better.
I think that would be fun. Maybe I'll come out to Santa Fe.
Okie dokie, Eric.
All right. Well, that was Albert Handell, and I'm really incredibly honored to have him on the podcast. Today's interview is sponsored by easelbrushclip.com, and it's just what it sounds like. Clip it onto your easel, and your brushes won't be hard to find or falling on the ground. Watch their video at easelbrushclip.com. And the podcast, episode number 6, is brought to you by PleinAir Magazine's PleinAir Convention. The tension is building because it's getting close. Coming up this April, you can see your favorite legends on stage teaching you their techniques. People like Kathy Anderson, Cindy Barron, Susan Blackwood, Grand Canyon painter, the legendary Kurt Walters, Western legends like Bill Anton, Matt Smith, Catherine Statz, George Strickland, Linda Tibbetts, Brian Mark Taylor, Juv Wang, Jane Hunt, Aline Ordman. Oh, man, there are so many. I can't even possibly mention them all here, and they are incredible. The incredible legend Dean Mitchell, and writer and director, film director, painter George Gallo, and over 60 others. We've got some great things planned. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'll be doing a whole new series in art marketing in my morning art marketing boot camps to help you sell more paintings and become the next well-known artist. You can learn more about the convention at pleinairconvention.com. It's also sponsored by the Plein Air Salon with up to $21,000 in cash prizes, and the big grand prize will be awarded at the convention. And so you need to enter your 5 best paintings and do it fast before March 15th, the absolute end of the year deadline, and you still have a chance to win. The Plein Air movement is hot, which is why PleinAir Magazine is the top-selling art magazine nationwide at Barnes & Noble. So drop by and pick one up, or what we would love for you to do is get your own bi-monthly subscription for about half that price. Just go to pleinairmagazine.com. Well, let's do this again sometime, like next week, and I'll see you then. I'm Eric Rhoads, publisher and founder of PleinAir Magazine. And remember, it's a big world out there. Go paint it. Bye-bye.